Well, hello again, it's Trudy here from Hot Patterns with part 3 of our fabulous sew along. Our sew along, of course, is for this one, the Fast and Fabulous Blouse-Back tee. This, as I said, is part 3. In part 1, we cut and prepared our fabric and our pattern, and in part 2, which is actually the longest part of all of them, we cut our garment out. And I showed you how to do it in stripy fabrics because there's kind of a couple of tricks for that. So if you haven't already seen that one, really recommend you hop off and have a look at that one. However, now we're here at part 3, and part 3 is actually kind of quick and easy. So I thought we'd do two things. One is obviously we do part 3, and part 3 is all about joining the body, putting the body pieces together. And we'd also just quickly take a moment or two to answer a few questions that have come up on our Facebook sewing group. The one that was really interesting was this. One of our sewing friends put up a question saying, what about using a stretch stitch on, a standard machine? Because don't forget, I'm doing 2 different garments with 2 different stitch types. This one, the blue and off-white stripe on the overlocker, and the black and white stripe one using a zigzag on a standard machine. And she said, well, what about a stretch stitch? And I have to say, I am not a lover of the stretch stitches. I do not love them. I think they take forever to do, and they're no more effective than a standard zigzag. So for personally, I wouldn't bother with a stretch stitch, but that's just me. Your mileage may, of course, vary. The other question that came up was, what about a twin needle? Hate them, hate them. I know they give you a beautiful like double row, beautifully parallel double row, but honestly, they just take forever because, of course, you've got the bobbin underneath has got to kind of do it twice like that, so it's doing that. It drives me nuts. So yeah, for me, stretch stitches, no thank you. Twin needles, no thank you. But for you, you may like them. If you like them, please go ahead and use them. And the other questions that we were asked on our Facebook sewing group, which we will actually deal with next time in part 4, there was a few fitting questions and a few things about what size should I choose, what, all those kind of things. So we'll kind of chat over those. Although it has to be said, a lot of it's down to the fabric you use and your proportions. So there's really no one size fits all. But we know that, don't we? That's what we say. Okay, so I am now going to lay out my pieces so you can see what they look like. And I guess I'm going to bring the camera in a bit closer so you can actually see them. But we normally lay out our t-shirts in the same way every time. When we're making a t-shirt top, we lay them out the same way. So you get like a cruciform, like a crisscross shape with the body, front and back, and then the sleeves, and that's how we're going to do it. But of course, we've got on ours, we've got a yoke, back yoke. So before we do any of that, I have to show you how to gather the blouse back onto the back yoke before you can piece it together. But first, I'm going to lay out the pieces and we can quickly go through them. Okay, so here we have the pieces laid out, and as I just said, this is our normal way of constructing a t-shirt, where you lay it all out and you put all the body pieces together before you attach neck bands, sleeve bands, if there were any hem bands, all that kind of stuff. And this is what makes a t-shirt a tee. It's in that kind of shape, especially when you lay it flat when it's all finished. So we've got our front. And you can notice that the fabric's curling like a curly thing, but that's okay. Curling at the edges, it's quite normal for a fabric with this much lycra in it. So we've got our front here, we've got our back yoke, we've got our blouse back, that's in our contrast. We've got a sleeve here and a corresponding one there, and then of course we've got sleeve bands and neck bands. So that's it, not a lot of pieces, and of course we've made sure that we cut them all beautifully and our stripes are all level and it's all lovely. Now this is something that's worth telling you. And I can give you an analogy as well. When it comes to sewing, you are always better to spend as much time and effort as possible on your preparatory steps. For instance, it's the same thing as if you were making something like a stir fry. If you've ever tried to make a stir fry without all your things being ready to actually go in the wok, you will know what a disaster it turns into. It's the same with sewing. If you've got everything prepared, everything's cut really beautifully, especially if you're using stripes, everything's level, it's all kind of ready to go, you will find the actual putting together of the garment is easier than you can possibly imagine. And this is worth noting, especially for new sewers. If you're kind of not used to the actual prepping part, you just want to kind of hack it out, don't. Kind of slow it down, do it really properly, and I promise you this part's going to go so easily. So Now we know which bits we're going to put together. I am going to pull out my instructions. I'm going to actually follow the order of which ones we go, because I can't remember if I put the yolk, put the back onto the yolk, or I put the yolk to the front first. I can't remember, so I'm going to follow the instructions so you can do so as well. Okay, so according to our instructions, point 3A has you joining back yoke to front, so shoulder seams first, and then drawing up these gathering stitches and joining the blouse back onto the yoke. So that's what we're going to do. Just to remind you, I'm using the zigzag stitch on this with a normal straight machine, and I'm using the overlocker on the blue and white one. So I'm going to sew those together. I mean, it's not even, I'm going to say it's maybe 2 and a bit inches. Not big seams at all. I'm going to do those, and you've already seen how they look in comparison and how they both kind of stretch the same, so I won't trouble you with showing you those again, but I'm going to do those, and then we're going to get onto the gathering part, or the top edge of the blouse back, and that's kind of important. It's kind of the whole feature, the whole thing, and I will show you that up close. Okay, we have done step 3A in our instructions, and that's to join the back yoke onto the front at the shoulder seams. Now I'm doing most of the work here on the black and white version, mainly so you can see how the blouse back area works in it, because it's much easier to see it in contrast fabrics. But I am of course working on this one at the same time, just using my overlocker. So I've done the same thing here. See? Back yoke is onto the front, and we're going to continue with that one as well. So you will get to see both of them when they're done, but this is, like I say, this is much easier to look at. Now, when you watched part 2 of our sew along, I showed you the 2 different stitch types I was using. I'm using a wide and shallow zigzag for this, and I'm using a 4-thread overlocker for the other one. And remember, when we did that, I showed you how you really have no choice but to press your seam allowances backwards. You can't press them open, it's just not a doable thing. So you have to press them together and press them backwards. So seam allowances always go kind of that way around the body, so to the back please. So once you've pressed those, we're now ready to gather up our stitches, pull up our drawing stitches and attach the gathered part of the back onto the back yoke. So we're going to do that. And do you remember, well of course you remember, and if not, that's why YouTube keeps all the videos up, very useful for us. When we did the row of zigzag here to use as our gathering stitches, you can, by the way, use straight stitches for gathering, it's really up to you. I said, please be sure to sew from the right side up. So the right side is facing you, and it's going to the machine, the right side of your fabric is facing you. There is a reason for this, not just me being pernickety, which could happen, but that's not it. When you do that, you will find that all you have to do is find the underneath thread. That's the one that's on the rear side, or the wrong side of your fabric. And if you pull that, that is what will gather your fabric up. Would you like to see what I mean? Of course you would. That's the top one. I know you can't really see it from there, but trust me when I tell you. In fact, I'll do this one back here, and then I'll do the blue and white one close up so you can see them. Okay, that's the top thread, that's the bottom thread. So I'm just going to very gently pull the bottom thread, and you can see it gathers up really like so easy. It's just ridiculous. And I spent many years working out how to do this until a sample machinist I worked with just went, oh, give it to me, this is how you do it. So this is how you do it. So the bottom thread is the one that you pull. So you'll gather up quite nicely. And your trick is now to gather it up not too much. So here is what I normally do. I have cunningly got some pins placed here in my yoke. And I want to pin my, whoops, let's put that over there, right sides together. I want to put one pin at the start of my gathers, and you'll find there's a notch. Again, I'll show you close up on the blue one because it'll be much easier for you. There's a notch where the gathers start and stop, so I'm going to pin those together at that notch, and I'm putting it on the stripe side because that's the side I need to watch. I need to really, make sure my stripes all line up, and I'm pinning it together on this side, which is where I started my gathering. We're all good with that. Only issue with knits is they can be a bit rolly at the edges. This one is no exception. And then I'm going to put one in the middle. Now I've just got to find my middle notch, which is, oh, hello baby, it's there. And my middle notch on here, add them together, pin them together, like that. So you can see that's already, that's already almost correct, and that's still got a lot, I've got to gather it. So I'm going to do this now off camera, but I'm going to come in and do it again really, really close with the blue one, and hopefully you'll be able to see exactly what I mean about pulling the back thread. That's the one that gathers. Okay, so now I'm doing my little close-up with the blue one. This is the bottom edge of the yoke, and this is the top edge of the blouse back area, and here's my notch. Here's where my gathering is going to start and stop. Well, you know, start on one side, stop on the other. So I've got my stitches here, my zigzag stitches, and of course I've left some thread at either end. By the way, when you do gathering stitches, don't do a back stitch to kind of hold it. You don't want that. You want the stitches to actually move. For once, you want them to move. So here's what I'm going to do. I've separated the two stitches like this, and I'm just going to pull very gently on the back one. And of course I'm doing this with the wrong hand because I'm right-handed, but I'm trying to make sure it's in shot for you. See how that works? It pulls it up really, really nicely. And now when I've roughly gathered it up, I'm going to pin it on so that that notch matches that one, so that the centre back notch, if we can see that, matches the centre back on here, and the other notch on here, if you can see that, matches the notch on there. That's how it looks when you're gathering it up. So we've got to gather it and redistribute our gathers so they're all evenly done. I'm going to do it on the, I'll do it on the black and white one, and I'll also do it on this one close up to show you. So yeah, I'm working on my black and white one here. This is our kind of long shot, so you can kind of see what I'm doing, but I will be showing you close up the blue and white one. This is kind of how it looks when it's pinned together. I'm not sure if you can see that, but it's basically, it kind of fits into the space that it's allowed to fit into. And the trick is to make sure that all your gathers are kind of equally spaced, and that's a matter of kind of finagling it and just redistributing any fullness so it all looks nice and even. Don't forget, you just draw up the bottom thread if you're stitching, and give it a nice little tug, and it'll all pull in really beautifully. When you've done that, you're just going to sew along this seam line here. That's it. It's really, you know, not the hardest thing in the world. I'm going to be very careful on this one because I want, of course I do, I want my stripes to be nice and even. I don't mind if I go halfway through a stripe or whatever, but I want it to be nice and even. So I'll be very careful with this. So shallow zigzag for this, obviously overlocker for this, and I'll show you both of them when they're done, and you will go, "Ooh, that looks pretty," because it does. Now here's a little close-up for you. If you can see, that's the yoke, and that's the gathered part of the blouse back, and that's our centre back, and that's where the gathers start and stop. So I've pulled it up so it's quite over gathered, well, just a little over gathered. And now what I've got to do is kind of redistribute like this. Just make sure that the gathers are kind of evenly placed. If you find it, or you think you're going to find it tricky to do, then before you do this step, actually when you're cutting out, I would recommend you put in some more notches. You know, if that's the halfway mark through the yoke, then maybe 1/4 of the way, and the same thing on the blouse back that you're going to gather on, and just match the notches up. That's how you will do it, and that's how you'll get a really nice result. Okay, so here we are with our blouse back joined onto our yoke, and you can see on this one I've managed to match up make the stripe all nice and kind of even here, because that's, you know, just how I like it. The gathers are all done and dusted. You probably will want to remove your gathering stitches once you've done this, just because they don't kind of sit as well as the other ones. So remove your zigzag gathering stitches, excuse me, when you've done this, and you're good. So now your final thing to do for this part, for part 3 of our sew along, is to join your sleeves to the armholes. And we do this flat, like this. So there's your sleeve, and you're just going to join it all the way around there. There is a notch at the top of the sleeve to match the shoulder seam. There is a notch at the front armhole to match the front notch on the armhole here. There are no notches on the back armhole because your double notches, your back notches on the sleeve, match to this seam here, so that's really useful for you to know. Now, this is the easiest way to put in a sleeve ever, and we do this both on knits and on wovens. We do it on all sorts of things, and it's really the best way to do it. So this is putting it in on flat, so you're just going to do one seam like that, and then you'll press the seam allowances towards the hem of the sleeve. That's kind of key. You want them going out this way as opposed to in here. Out that way gives you a nice kind of shoulder line. In here makes you look kind of clunky like that, not good. So you're going to do that, that's your next thing, and that's really the last thing you're going to do for part 3. And I'm sure you want to know what it looks like, and I'm going to show you with the blue one. I'm trying to be very sneaky about this, but it's not fooling anybody. Okay, now the blue one interestingly enough, has a slightly higher percentage of lycra than the black and white. So something happens to this, not a big deal at all, but just be aware of it. Your fabric may do this too. Now these stripes, of course, are not equal stripes. They're not a knit stripe like this one. They're a printed stripe because they're kind of a broken stripe, a painted stripe. So you won't get that same kind of precision, but that's okay. It's more of a kind of groovy, relaxed look on this one. This one I have attached the sleeves to. I think you can see them there. There's our sleeve hem, there's our shoulder here, neckline here, and that just goes in like that, and the seam allowance, as I said, is pushed towards the hem of the sleeve. When you've got a fabric like this, it's got a little bit more lycra, you may have an instance like we have here, where the gathers kind of stretch out a little bit. It doesn't kind of go as pristine and beautiful as this one. That's perfectly fine. Just carry on as normal, just ignore that fact. And either a good zhuzh of steam will pull it all back in and make this lay flat and that gathered, or wash it and dry it in the tumble dryer and that should sort it out, no problem. So I've given it a little press just to press the, oh, by the way, the yoke seam allowances need to go up that way. So I've given it a little press to make sure the seam allowance is going the right way, but that's pretty much it. So this is what we're ending up with our t-shirt. It's almost done. Almost. You can see here, all we've got to do now is the finishing off part. So for part 4, we're going to put on the neckband. That has to come next. Then the side seams with a sneaky little finishing trick for those. Then the front hem. And then the sleeve bands, and that's it. That'll be all we're doing in the next one. On part 4, I'll be finishing it off from our sew along. So now you've got this, you can kind of almost complete your garment. So if you're doing like a lot of our Facebook sewing group are just like, hey, let's do it, come on, then please go ahead, do this. If not, if you want to wait and see the part 4, then please do that as well. Either way, you're going to have a lovely result.